Jesus said, love each other as I have loved you. And that may not seem like an earth-shaking statement. It may not seem like a profound earthquake type foundational shift, a paradigm change, but it has a huge impact on life. At marriagehelp.com we have a list of 10 rules, and I can show you a picture of one of those 10 rules. How do we take care of each other when the chips are really down? Okay? I want to maybe start by telling you a story. I had worked in a company for 5 years. I'd started knowing nothing, simply answering the phone. I didn't know how to do anything else in their business, their industry. Within a little while, I knew enough that I was asked to become a salesperson. I kept learning, I kept trying to grow, kept trying to improve my quality, value added to the company. And pretty soon I was not only a salesperson, but I was managing the production shop. And I managed that production shop for over 4 years and oversaw its transformation into an incredible production shop. Completely rebuilt it from the top all the way to the bottom. Now you would think that someone who was committed to the business, who had given so much, would be wonderfully rewarded. Well, that's the myth of the American dream. You work hard, you get promoted, you move forward, someone sets a bonus out ahead of you and says, if you can make this and this and this happen, then I'm going to pay you such and such and such extra above and beyond if you can meet all the requirements. It's a wonderful vision, a wonderful goal. And we spent the last year completely redoing everything and met every production goal besides. And then I was fired. I was fired in stages. I was taken down from the production management role and put back in the role as salesperson. Significant reduction in income. I think the idea was that I would refuse to take a step down and decide just to leave the company. I was made a salesperson that could not contact any of the people in the businesses, construction industries, or anything that I had built up a relationship over the years, because those were not going to be allowed to me as clients. And so I was only allowed to take care of people who walked randomly through the door. I didn't get the bonus that I was promised. I didn't get the reward for the work that I had done. And in a very short time, I was charged that since my sales numbers did not match what they expected, I was being terminated. Let me tell you, if you believe the myth and you say, I will believe that I'm supposed to be handsomely rewarded for all of my hard work and my energy, you run a very high risk of being disappointed. And that doesn't make me a pessimist. Please don't take me as being a pessimistic person. But I want you to understand, Jesus said several things that shook people up. He broke the mold. He busted the perceptions. He just refused to live with what had been said. I'm going to read just a couple of words here. He says, you've heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Now this comes from Matthew, the 5th chapter, verse 43 and following. But I tell you, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your brothers, what are you doing more than others? Don't even the pagans do that? If you work for an employer because he pays you royally, aren't you just doing your job? If you love someone who smiles and greets you warmly and says, oh my, what a wonderful relationship we have. Isn't this grand? I appreciate you so much. That doesn't really stretch you very much. It's not even a challenge to like people who like us back. But when you love someone who has taken you down from a position of responsibility and thrown you into a position you cannot perform like you would like to do, and you continue to perform to the very best of your ability, and in the end, this individual actually reported that I was not supposed to be given unemployment compensation after I had been completely fired because he didn't want to pay it. He didn't want his account reduced by that. What do you do when someone doesn't treat you fairly or as you should be treated? Well, not that I set myself up as a perfect example of how everybody should do everything, but on the day I knew I was being terminated, I wanted to make sure that all my clients were taken care of and all my contracts were completed. I'd had the keys to the entire facility for 5 years almost, and I had the free reign of coming and going anytime and any place I needed to, because I was there usually early in the morning setting up so that the rest of the crew could come in and get started, and making sure all the equipment was fully warmed up and ready to operate. And so I was in the office working on completing a couple of bids that I had offered people and weren't due for a couple of days, but I wanted to get them done before I actually left the premises. And I think I was supposed to leave somewhere around 4 o'clock in the afternoon that day. Now in some situations, if you're being fired, they actually come and walk you to the door to make sure you're not going to do damage to the company in a return for being dismissed. But in this case, I was there all by myself in the main room of the showroom area, contract area. And I worked and I worked. The owner of the company actually called me and said, everybody else has left. Why are you still here? I said, I'm working on some contracts. As soon as I get them prepared and faxed, I will be able to go ahead and have them completed so that they can be considered. As soon as they receive the faxes, they can consider the bids. But I don't want to have to leave unfinished business for someone to have to clean up for. And I stayed and I worked and I continued to take care of things until probably 4:30 or a little after. And after I had completed it, I made sure everything was shut down appropriately and locked the door and went back to where the owner of the business was waiting. And I handed him the keys and I said, thank you very much for a chance to work in your company. I learned a great deal. I appreciate the chance that you gave me to improve my skill set and enjoyed working in your organization. Thank you very much for what you provided for me. And he looked at me kind of funny and, okay, thank you. And I went home. I didn't quite finish it. I need to give you the rest of the story. We had a tradition in that company. It's a good tradition, I think. When something pleasant happened, a victory was won, a goal was reached, or something was done that was satisfying, the person who had benefited, whether it was the person who got the contract or the one who finished the job ahead of schedule or whatever it was that had been the one who had been best, said, I'll buy the cake. And the next day they would bring in a special treat at break time, and they would treat everyone in the company. The phrase was, I'll buy the cake. Well, the next day after I had been fired, terminated, I showed up at break time, and I had been down to the store and I bought a cake that said, thank you, God bless you, on the top of it. And I brought it to the break room where all of my crew and all of my friends and the boss and the owner was there and everyone was there. And we cut the cake and they looked at me like saying, but you're the one who was fired. You're the one who was let go. Why would you be the one buying the cake? But I wanted them to know I was thankful I'd had a chance to work with them. I wanted them to know I thanked them and appreciated them for all the efforts that they had made. I mean, some of them very sacrificial. I wanted them to know that I loved them. Even the owner of the company. Even when the discussion turned to whether or not I was going to get unemployment benefits, I wasn't angry. I had my facts, I had the situation there, but there was no reason to be angry. In marriage counseling, I often read that story about love your enemies. Jesus said, you've heard it said that you're supposed to love those who love you and hate those who hate you. Love those who have no intention of hurting you, and pray for those and bless those. Pray for the blessing of those who are trying to destroy you. How does that apply to marriage counseling? How does that apply to your relationship as husband and wife? Here's the issue. If you're having an argument and you're having a disagreement and it's hot, you're really upset. My outline for you, my expectation for you is to start off every discussion, every argument with these words. I love you. I will always love you. My love is permanent. I'm not going to change my mind about taking care of you. I will always love you. I don't have to get what I want from this argument before I love you. I'm going to take care of you anyway. You see, a lot of times what we do is we have this handshake of sorts. You pay me, I'll work for you, you give me what I want, I give you what you want, I'll take care of you as long as you take care of me. But in my little story, it didn't work that way. It didn't work like the contract says it's supposed to work. So when I don't get what I want, I'm not going to give you what you want. I'm going to stand up and say, I should have expected more. I should have demanded more. I should have been paid more. I should have been recognized more. Well, you'd like that. But in marriage, how often do you get what you'd really like to get out of marriage without having to pay what you're really supposed to pay? Here's what it means. We talk about love like it was bribery. We talk to each other like we're trying to extort protection money. If you don't do what I want you to do, if you don't act the way I want you to, if you don't let me do what I really want to do in this relationship, I have in my power to punish you, to deprive you of what you want more than anything else, to deny you what you need to feel safe. I have the power to make your life miserable, and I will do it if you do not give me what I demand. I feel so sad when I take care of couples who gravitate down to that level of relationship, because they have lost the joy of loving each other. They are simply sharing a cell in a prison of their own design. Criminals in prison who have violated their social contracts in this country and have been placed in incarceration work at that level. Not husbands and wives, not employees and employers, not friends, not fellow brothers and sisters in the Lord, not family. If we're supposed to love our enemies, how much more are we supposed to love our husbands and wives? If Jesus said, love those who try and persecute you, how much better, how much more important, how much more benefit is there for people we just simply disagree with? The social contract breaks down when we have to have our own way all the time. Jesus tried to give us instructions on how to live, how to work, how to share, how to take care of one another. And the very first rule, the very first command he gives us is you have to love as I have loved you. As I have loved you. What does that mean? I still have trouble getting my head around what it means. If Jesus said, I'm going to show you how to love, and then you're supposed to love just like I've showed you the example, what does that mean? Well, on the last night of his life, Jesus had all of his friends in a circle around him. They were in the same room. They were sharing, and he showed them the depth of his love, not only by sharing the elements of what we now call as communion, the Lord's Supper, but he knelt down to his disciples and he took their sandals off and he washed the dust of the street off of their feet. That was the work that the lowest paid, the lowest status servant in the household was supposed to do, not the one who was the teacher, the leader, the master in the house. Not the honored guest at the meal, which he was. And there was sort of a revolt among the disciples. We don't want you doing this menial job that the lowest paid servant was supposed to do. You see, he washed the feet and blessed the one disciple, his one follower, named Judas Iscariot, who was going to leave that room in just a few moments and go down to the leadership and tell the leaders who were trying to arrest Jesus where they could find him. The leaders had tried to arrest him several different times, and he kept slipping away from them. I mean, he was in the crowd in the temple at different times, and they'd send the soldiers down to try and arrest him, but for some reason, Jesus just walked through the crowd, and nobody seemed to be able to recognize him or touch him. So they said, we'll give you this 30 pieces of silver, but you have to prove to us that we can lay our hands on the right person. We're not going to make another stupid mistake just because somebody promised to tell us where he was going to be. Judas said, I'll make sure that you know who to arrest. And so through the night, he walked with the soldiers who were going to arrest Jesus. And when they got to the Garden of Gethsemane, where the group had stopped for prayer, Judas walked straight up to Jesus, standing before him, and gave him a kiss on the cheek as an indication of the one they were supposed to arrest. A man who had been with Jesus for a long time, from the very beginning. A man he had given himself to. A man he had shared communion with. A man he had knelt and unlatched his sandals and washed his feet as an indication of his love for him. A man he had carried with him the entire way as a friend, now kissed him on the cheek. So that they would know who to arrest and who to flog, and who to imprison, and who to beat with their fist, and who to crucify. If you want to know how to love, and my story seems a little weird to you, I want you to look real close. No nail prints in the hands. No sword placed in the side. It was just a job. And I got another, and the Lord was gracious in that. And it didn't take very long, and the Lord was gracious in that. What reason might I have for not loving and taking care of those people? I can't. You don't have any justification for not taking care of your husband. You don't have any justification for being angry and mean and bitter to your wife. You don't have any indication where you have the freedom to say, I'm not getting what I want out of things, so I'm not giving anybody what I'm not getting myself. That's your human nature. That's Satan's whispers in your ear. That's the way Satan does business. Not God's people. We can do better than that. We have to do better than that.